All right, let's talk about congruent triangles. So first of all, there are 5 rules. 5 rules to show or showing triangles are congruent. Now, I know that's a lot of symbols, but there are 5 rules showing triangles are congruent. You have to know all 5. First one, SSS, that stands for side, side, side. Side, angle, side. Side, angle, side. Angle, side, angle. Angle, angle, side. And this last one is HL. The order of these rules do not matter, but you have to know all them. So we're going to go through each one step by step, and I'm going to show you what they look like, what to look for, what not to do, what to do, okay? So let's look through each of those. Let's start with the one that most students find the easiest. We're going to start with side, side, side. What that means is if you have 3 sides on one triangle, exactly the same as 3 sides on another triangle, all 3 of those are the same, side, 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 then the 2 triangles are congruent. So let me give you an example. And of course, my drawings are not going to be beautiful, so just kind of accept it. These 2 sides are congruent. So there's my S, side. These 2 sides are congruent, S, side. And then this one, oops. Those 2 are congruent. So you have a set of sides, this first one, a set of another set, or another set of sides, and then you have this third set. So you have 3 sides congruent to 3 sides, therefore, these triangles are congruent. Okay, now side, 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 the reason why it's one of the easier ones to recognize is because there's only sides involved. There's no angles at all. So let me give you another example. Even if this was a right triangle, and I know they don't look congruent, but just pretend. If the hypotenuse of each of these triangles were congruent, and a leg was congruent, and another leg was congruent, and another leg were congruent, all 3 of those, we can say this is by side, side, side. There are other rules that could apply in this case, but for now, there's side, side, side. So 3 pairs of congruent sides means these triangles are congruent. Okay, let's go to another one. We're going to go to side, angle, side. Side, angle, side. Now we've got an angle involved. And where that angle is involved matters. The order matters. So you have to have 2 sides, which we just talked about sides, so I think you can do it. But the angle has to be the included angle, or the one between the 2 sides. Oops. So let me draw 2 triangles. I'm going to say side, side. We got sides. We understand this, hopefully. Now, the angle has to be the angle created by the 2 sides. Here's the 2 sides. There's the angle. So if you have sides that are the same, angles that are the same, and then another set of sides, this is side, angle, side. Let me try this kind. And again, these can be any type of triangles, like obtuse, acute, scalene, whatever. So sides, sides. Try to imagine where you think the angle has to be to make it side, angle, side. So find the 2 sides that are marked. Find the angle in which they meet. Angle, angle. So side, angle, side. It is the included angle, which means it's the angle that is created by the 2 sides. Okay, there's side, angle, side. Let's do another one. Let's do angle, side, angle. Again, order matters. The side must be the included side. So 2 sets of triangles. They kind of look the same. I'm going to say this angle and this angle are congruent. That's given information. This angle and this angle are also congruent. Given information. And all this information that we've been talking about, it's just given. You are given it in the problem. You just have to determine what rule. Okay, so I've got this, angles, angles. This has to be the included side. So take the two angles. Look where my fingers are. There's only one side between these. That's the side it has to be. What? Angle, angle? The side between them? There's the side. So angle, side, angle. It must be in that order. The order of the rule is the order in which the picture must be. All right, we're given angles. So we'll start with this angle and that angle. Those are congruent. And we'll say this right here. These two angles are congruent. If you need to physically touch the two angles, find the side between them. Angle, side, angle. Okay, this next one, for some reason, it is really difficult to see for most students. So order matters, angle, angle, and then this side is like an afterthought almost. Okay, you're given two sets of angles. Angle, angle. Now, if it were this side, that these two sides that were congruent, that would be angle, side, angle. It is not that side. It's angle, angle, and then the side is after, not between. Angle, angle, side. That works for the angle, angle, side, which means, hey, these are congruent. And all of these that I have been doing, they're congruent. Okay, but let's just pretend, I'm going to erase this. I still have those two sets of angles, but now I had this side, these two sides marked. Look at the order. The side marked is not between the two angles. It is still angle, angle, side. It's still after. Now, just so you know, some teachers call this rule side angle, angle. It's the same rule because all the rules you can use forwards or backwards. It doesn't change the rule. The lettering, which one goes together, that matters. So see two angles in a row and then a side. Two angles in a row and then a side. So let's do one more. So you have two angles marked. And this could be, you know what, just for fun, let's mark it as a 90-degree angle. Because a 90-degree angle is still an angle. So we've got angle, angle, or we have angle, angle. You go either way. So this side would have to be marked, this leg. Or if we went this way, angle, angle, then the hypotenuse on each triangle would have to be marked. So we'll just stay there. So angle, angle, side. And yes, a right angle counts as an angle. This last rule is crazy important because if you get this rule wrong or think it is called something else, it will be very inappropriate, and I'll show you why in a second. Okay, in a triangle. Now, this is just an example. In a triangle, there is not a rule that says this. Now, think about this in your head. Angle, side, side. A, S, S. Not a rule, not appropriate, not okay. Whether it's spelled forwards or backwards, it will not work. So if I have an angle and two sides, like an angle after the fact, or two sides and then an angle, or an angle and then two sides, then it will not always be congruent. So be really careful because it actually does not work. So this, you wouldn't write on your math paper, which means this, you wouldn't write on your math paper because it's the same rule, just backwards. So what you're going to do is when it comes to a right triangle, and only a right triangle, that rule actually works. But we don't call it ASS because then you might think it works all the time. We actually call it HL because a right triangle has a hypotenuse and a leg. In fact, a right triangle is the only type of triangle that has the hypotenuse. So it's hypotenuse, leg. So what you're going to do is you'll be given that it's a right triangle. The hypotenuse has to be marked on both triangles. And then one of the sides, and it doesn't matter which one, but one of the sides has to be marked, whether it's these ones on the bottom or the ones on the left. It's okay either way. But notice ASS, that doesn't work. But since it's a right triangle, it actually does. And we'll get into the math of that later. But it really does work. But we call it HL. HL. Okay, and I'll give you one more example. And I'll draw the right triangles this way. squeaky pen. So H has to be marked. The hypotenuse has to be marked because you can't have hypotenuse leg without the hypotenuse. It's not going to work. So I'm going to say, okay, we'll mark this one now. So HL, not ASS. HL, that one will work. Okay, we've got these sets of triangles drawn out, and they're nothing special, nothing fancy or exciting, but we're going to look at each set. So this is what I recommend, especially when you're learning this. Mark what you have. I've got angles. I've got sides. And I've got angles. If you mark them in the order that you see them, it actually gives you the answer. Angle, side, angle. These are congruent by angle, side, angle. And there's my rule. Okay, this one, it's a right triangle. Or these are right triangles. So I'm like, ooh, HL is going to work. But look at H. There's nothing there. So HL is right away off the table. So if you get a right triangle, check for HL. Is there a hypotenuse marked? Are the legs marked? And if so, HL works. But this is still an angle. Whether it's 90 or something else, it's still an angle. So let's mark them. Side, angle, side. Side, angle, side. There's my rule. And it's right in order. And it actually jumps out at you when you label it. Congruent by side, angle, side. Okay, let's look at this one. These are right triangles. So, ooh, it's a right triangle. Let's look for H. Is the hypotenuse marked on each? Yes, it is. Is there a set of legs marked? Yes, there are. So in this case, I am actually calling it congruent by HL because it definitely is a right triangle and the hypotenuse and a leg are marked on each triangle. Okay, here it is. And this one, I see the sides first, so I'm going to mark those. Then I see an angle. Then I see this other angle. I'm like, oh, what should it be? Angle, side, angle? Nope, it's in the order of the picture. Side, angle, angle, or angle, angle, side. Remember I said you can write it either way. That is why they're congruent. Because of angle, angle, side, or side, angle, angle. Either way works. And this last one. I've got sides. I've got another side. I've got another side. I'm hoping that one's easy to see. These are congruent by side, side, side. Now, if you look at this, it's a little bit messy. But if you look at these, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All 5 rules are given here. The tricky problems are things that use the reflexive property most of the time. So I'm going to draw some triangles using the reflexive property. And what that means is you have a shared something, so reflexive. Oops. Reflexive property. It means there's a shared side or a shared angle. Okay, so let's look at these 2 triangles. There are 2 triangles here. Here's one. And we're going to say that's a right triangle. And in a different color, hopefully you can tell the difference of the colors. Here's the other. Okay. So I know that these are both right angles. There's my A. I would have to be given something else. Okay, I would have to have more information. And right now, this is all I have. Okay, but let's just say in this problem, you were also told this angle is congruent to that angle. Well, there's another A from both triangles. Okay, so I've got A, but there isn't a rule that says AA. You have to have something else. And then you look, hey, look, right here in the middle. This straight up and down side is exactly the same on both triangles. That means it's the reflexive property. It's equal to itself. So I'm going to say, hey, that's equal to itself. And that right there is a side. So I have side, angle, angle, or angle, angle, side. So the reflexive property, when it's overlapped or shared, let's draw another one. I'm trying to do these in different colors as I go. There we go. I'm hoping you can see that shared side. But this time, I'm going to tell you that this is congruent to that. And I'm going to tell you that this is congruent to that. So go ahead and label. I've got side. I've got another side. And there's no rule that says side, side. So I keep looking for that unknown, but we should just know it. And here it is. These are shared sides. So of course they're going to be congruent to themselves. So I can say there's a side, side, side using the reflexive property. And when you get to proofs, this is going to be really helpful that you know the reflexive property. All right, there's one last thing that's like tricky and it often is hard for kids to see. So it looks something like this. If you had two triangles, those don't look congruent, but just imagine that you were told that this side right here was the same as that side. And you were told also that this side was the same as that side. So I want you to imagine, even though they're supposed to look the same, imagine here, I'll make it look a little bit better. Does that look closer? I want you to imagine that this triangle right here had a point of rotation and it rotated right here. So these two sides line up, those two as well. There is not a rule that's side, side. Side, side. We're missing something, and that's the vertical angle or vertical angles. So I look at this picture and I'm like, oh yeah, these are across from each other. When two angles cross like this and are created, these are always congruent. Vertical angles are always congruent. So there's my A. So I look at the picture, side, angle, side. I'm like, oh, cool. I know why they're congruent. Congruent by side, angle, side, or side, angle, side congruency. Okay, let's try another one with that vertical angle. Okay, I'm going to draw a right triangle with vertical angles. So we've got a right triangle. So instantly you're like, ooh, let's look for HL. Nothing's marked yet though. So I've got this angle. And I am going to mark the hypotenuse. And I'm going to pretend like this is given information. You are given a problem like this. So you're like, okay, there's a side, which happens to be the H. So I'm going to put this in parentheses. It could be the H. Because it definitely is the hypotenuse. So it could be hypotenuse leg, or it could just be a side. Okay, and I've got this angle. So I've got angle side, or H. Neither one of those are rules. So then I have to look for something else, and I go, oh yeah. These are vertical angles. So there is another set of angles. So this one's kind of tricky to see. I'm going to cover this one up just to make it a little bit easier. So I have side, angle, angle, or angle, angle, side, either way. And so, yeah, you could have a right triangle. Yes, they could be connected like a rotation, but they will always, if they're vertical, be congruent. I hope that helped.